Okay, welcome back to Beyond the Cards. I'm Allison DiNicola, and it's my extreme pleasure today to welcome Dr. Harmony Lynn Turner from the Twin Flame Ascension, and she's going to talk all about her amazing card deck just in a minute. But I'm going to give a little brief intro for those of you who haven't met her yet. Dr. Harmony helps twin flames struggling from separation wounds to transform their trauma and find union within so that they can align to their divine partner. She also assists light workers working to earn money, doing what they love, start a spiritually based coaching business, and scale to 6 figures and beyond. She is the founder of the Soul Writers Academy, helping new authors find their voice, write their books, and share their stories so they can get published now. Dr. Harmony is an Amazon bestselling author and award-winning card deck creator. In addition, she's a quantum healer, transformational teacher with a 25-year background in chiropractic and vibrational medicine. She holds a doctorate in divinity. Amazing. You are incredible. So many different things. So welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. So I'll just share a little bit that the first time that we met was when Harmony, I'm going to call you Harmony because that's what I call you.
No, that's totally fine.
It was when Harmony sent in the manuscript for the Twin Flame Ascension, and it really caught everybody's attention at U.S. Games, but particularly it landed on my desk, as usually things do, that have any kind of vibrational energy or energetic healing that has to do with it. They asked me to chat with her and to see what this was all about. And so I'm going to give it to you here, Harmony, just to talk about the process of how, what led you to develop this card deck, and just a little bit of the process of how that all happened.
Okay. Well, thank you. And thank you for that amazing introduction. I got to start where this started. And that was when I was a young child. And as a young child, I knew in my soul that there was something I was to create. And I also knew that it would be the first thing that ever was created in the world. And it was just in my vibration. And I, even at a young age, the internet wasn't present then. So I somehow got to the department of the U.S. Patent Department, and they sent me a package, and I started studying how to patent things when I was a young child. With that, I knew that I was going to grow up, change my name, and it was going to be an author. And I also knew that there would be like mini series coming that I was going to be creating out of like all that. And so far everything's come true, and the alignment of the mini series is lining up. It's not fully full force, but there's a lot of things with that. But how that then came to, as a healer and a chiropractor, of course, our path becomes the path that becomes our purpose. And we get on that path based on our own journey and what the things we go through. And it keeps us directed along the way. And to know that nothing we've ever done is out of alignment, really, because no matter what route it took us on, we needed it for soul growth and our evolution. So along that path, I was directed from the healthcare field into chiropractic. And in that path, the training I had set me up for everything I need to know now in quantum physics and healing and vibrational medicine for what I help the world do now, and especially where the world is now. And so the whole time I was in chiropractic school, I kind of felt like I'm not going to be a chiropractor. And then I came out and I was a chiropractor, and I felt very limited, even though I was a phenomenal chiropractor and I was different than the average 25 years ago. I was holistic. I was teaching mind, body, spirit, and I was doing these classes that built my practice. But along the way, like, it was all preparation again for the process. And inside of me, I knew that I was being constricted and limited, and I knew I needed to come out, but I didn't know how to make that happen. Of course, that's what everybody's deal is today, trying to get into their purpose. But the thing is, your purpose finds you. You don't really find it. And so through the chiropractic experience, I met someone that awakened me as a catalyst to the twin flame journey. And through that journey, and it's a very intense journey, it's a lot about transformation, alchemy, and transmutation from the inside out. And so I started evolving like faster, further, quicker. And I could see very clearly I was a pioneer because I'd moved beyond the chiropractic field at that time, because that was more mainstream now to have organic foods that would take people shopping, so I knew my job had felt complete from my soul level. And so moving into the twin flame journey, I was really resistant to it because knew I was being a transformational coach. As a chiropractor, I knew and saw myself sitting behind a desk working with people all over the world, but had no clue how that was going to happen. But it all started lining up, but it takes surrender to that process. And so the more I surrendered into the process and the more I started letting go into the whole twin flame journey in the community, because once I surrendered, everything I needed came to support me. All the people started showing up, like twin flame, and that was 7 years ago. And that's even expanding and becoming much more of a enlightening experience where the whole world is like waking up. And we're still just getting started in the whole twin flame community, really. But there's so much confusion about the twin flame journey. And so in the process of that, I think a piece of what I bring to the table is to help people at the end of the day. That journey's inside of you, and that's creating a unity within you. And that unity comes from an alignment of your higher truth and your higher self, which everyone's your mirror and can reflect to you what you need to do to gain that wisdom and unlock and tap into that and embody that. And so all of my process and writing books and creating the cards all became like what the things that manifested in that and were created out of that was through my process of that. And so fast forwarding to how I connected with US Games is the minute I knew that like I was to do a card deck and I went to look for one actually for me and my clients, there was not one out there to be had. And one of them had been a self-published, but had no longer been available. And so I knew it was to create one. And so since then, there has been others created, but they're all self-published. And to my knowledge, even today, this is the first one in mass distribution. So it links back to my childhood knowing and being here and just knowing that I'm just getting started and I'm like super excited to have had all this wisdom to share.
Wow. Well, first of all, let me just say that it's an amazing gift that from a child, knowing something from being a child to having that inkling or that inner drive and to actually realizing it is, like a huge completion, a huge, amazing thing. So congratulations. It's fantastic that you, and even have that like strong memory of like, I knew this as a child that you like got the patents. And I just love that. I mean, I love that kind of, self-starterism. So it's like, you're like a young entrepreneur, but I think what might be really helpful, because it was really helpful to me. So when we spoke and you did a reading for me with the cards before we even, got into our process of, design and helping them come to life. If you could just explain in like kind of simple terms, what is a twin flame? Because I think there's a little misinformation out there. I hear a lot of people talk about it and they think it's about finding their soulmate or their twin partner or finding their perfect match in the universe. So I think that's like a generally and so what really so first of all, everything exists in this and it's no wonder there's controversy out there. But as we know, we're breaking down programs from the past or recreating everything new. So the twin flame concept dates back to Adam and Eve, Jesus and Mary Magdalene, and it has to do with the sense that you birth from each other and you create the creations within. And that creation within aligns a lot with those masculine and feminine energies. And in that, though, when somebody thinks if I want to find my soulmate or my other half, technically it is your strongest, greatest mirrored reflection of you. And that technically is a twin flame, whether they realize it or not, as far as what their soulmate is. Now, with that being said, there is totally difference in soulmates and twin flames because soulmates are much more harmonious and they flow and you've had many, many, many lives together. And when the twin flame, and I will say the one that is more that eternal person that matches you at your highest vibration, because there's everything in between today with the part that's getting people confused. We're all ascending. Everybody's going up in consciousness and we're being portaled through a funnel of energy that's creating quantum entanglement and creating collective oneness. So when we look at the history of time, it has been more about the relationship of the past, in the past. But in the relationship, you've had many, many lives that you've done all this mastery. So when you finally came into the same life together, you've done a lot of clearing and you're ready to start doing your reuniting. But in today's world,
it's a whole different mission. The mission is that when one heals, we all heal. And so it's inside of us and it's our reflection. And it's about an energetic shift in consciousness that is in waves of consciousness. So when now a twin flame comes in to basically activate your energy template, and that's where this energy mind training and that comes in, they're literally activating your own light body to awaken to you. And
Wow.
so, but it doesn't just take a twin flame to do that. In today's world, it's where it gets confusing. There can be catalyst. It can be a soulmate that does it. A twin flame is, and you can have multiple twin flame experiences where people think it's only one, because at the end of the day, you are the one. And so it's where you're elevating, you're expanding, you're heightening. And most likely it's probably always been that way. It's just from the history of time, it was rare. And now everyone's doing it. But the reason it's happening with everybody doing this now is the self-love revolution of the flip in consciousness between age of Pisces and age of Aquarius. That's this waves of energy, because it's 2,150 years between those two on a universal timeline. So it takes, ramp up time, 100 years, 50 years, 25 years up. And the pivotal point was at the Mayan calendar ending in December 21st of 2012. We're coming on the other side of the consciousness now. We're embodying, we're bringing into form these energies. So Pisces is breaking down everything, and the Aquarius is recreating something new. That's also moving from a masculine era to a feminine era. And so we are shifting that. And technically, the twin flame phenomena is a part of the shift in consciousness, but it's because of the self inside your internal state of coming into the alignment of your masculine and feminine energies, which takes also aligning with your higher self and your lower self, and your right brain and your left brain, your head and your heart. And that's where we're bringing more balance to ourselves and balance to the world.
So, so tell us about, creating a card deck to support this movement, this shift in consciousness, which we know is rapidly, happening out there. And for some people, they're, for those of you who are listening, maybe you've been resisting your shift in consciousness, and there's like, if you're resisting, it's going to be like, you're going to get pushed through the hole. And then for the rest of us, we're like, take me, I'm ready to go. And you're just kind of sailing through. So what was your dream in creating this card deck to support? Like how will using this deck support that process of, reuniting our masculine and feminine energies and figuring out, where we are in the timelines and in our own development?
So the card deck in itself came in about 7 years ago. That started the process of me creating it through what I was seeing through myself and other people and clients. And it became like a little science experiment. And I was putting together everything I saw. And so it was a lot of channeling information, but I was living it out and people were proving this to me. But it really, the deck followed the same suit of the combination of your own enlightenment, your own transcendence, your own ascension process, and going up in your ascension. And so as we go up in ascension, the goal is to shift from fear to freedom, basically. And so the whole deck is about going from fear to freedom. And so in the process, part of the color coding that came through started with slate being the shadows. And the shadows of that slate deck, or that slate, there's 55 cards, there's 5 suits, and 11 cards for each suit. So the first deck represents shadows, but that really means is this is all about self-mastery at the end of the day. And it's about collecting our parts and our soul fragments we've lost in every lifetime and every time-space reality, which is why this collective shift is taking place by everyone. And this is why it's happening with everyone, because we're all clearing at a rate of our karmic purge that we've never done in one. We're clearing multiple lives in one life, when normally you would not be doing this much work, soulful work or personal development at one time. And we're not only doing it one time for ourselves, we're collectively doing that for that purge. So this deck literally follows that shift, and it starts going from the lower end of the lessons. So there's 11 lessons that you're to learn to help create the self-mastery of letting go of the shadow sides and the shadow self. And in that, the second suit is the green suit, or really the aqua suit, but that aqua represents balance. And that was why that color was chosen. And a lot of people see the number 1111. And so the number of 11 was coming through and fell for many reasons to 11 cards per suit, because 11 represents balance of the masculine and feminine energies. But in that pathway, so the pathway to true love is finding yourself. And that's what the second suit is about, is the pathway to true love, which is the ascension process. And that's the take me home. And the take me home is representing home is where the heart is. And that you are shifting from like the dark night of the soul into becoming this enlightened being. And swans really represent a lot of the twin flame journey, which is where the swan came in. But I have an entire personal story of swans and how they followed me through this journey. And so, the swans came through to use that as, if you notice that on this, it is the swan. Of course, you can have the activation and you get the relationship that you desire when you become, the oracle, basically, which is what this means. You no longer have to search outside of yourself for what you seek. It's inside, and you've awakened to that. You've gained your power. You've collected your fragments. You're becoming whole and complete. And then, so the third suit then is the red suit. And that technically represents your teachers along the way. And I take that back. That's actually the suit where the twin flame journey comes into it to parallel the pathway of the ascension. So you have a personal ascension pathway. Then you can have the twin flame paralleling you to help drive you to you through the mirrored reflection. The olive suit represents basically our inner masculine, or inner energies, I should say, of different types of energies that we carry in our masculine, our feminine energies. And it also represents then different ascension teachers that can come along a mirror for us, different types. But in that is also the aspects of who we are, coming into those energies of the high priestess and the high priest. Those are inside of us. And then the fifth suit, which is the amber suit, represents you're shifting into this ability to accelerate the process. Not only does the twin flame help you accelerate this process, because you'll do it on your own, but a twin flame or mirrored souls will come in and help you facilitate this faster. But if you're conscious enough, you can do awakening tools, and that's the fifth suit. And the fifth suit has lots of activations and things that can take place to help awaken you to all these things we're talking about, and they're tools that will help you facilitate this journey easier, faster. And of course, like you said, the key in it is your resistance. The more you resist, the more it's going to persist. And the more you hang on, the more you're creating more struggles and suffering and pain. So the whole journey is going to also letting go and surrendering the process and finding balance. So I guess a big key I could tell everybody here that would really help them is finding the balance between resistance and surrender in that journey, because we're human. It's going to exist. We're in its polarity and contrast. The whole journey is, which is the masculine and feminine energy and the shadow and the light and the divinity all exist. And the way we find ourselves and the way that the twin flame helps us find ourselves is through the divine. And at the end of the day, it's waking up the divine in me exists in you. And when we go into the light of ourselves and that flame within ourselves, that's where we meet. And that's where you have two awakened, self-mastered souls that's, completed some self-mastery. Now you're coming into the alignment of the person, because first you're aligning with yourself. And to do that, it takes aligning with the source, which usually brings in alignment with the purpose and then the partner.
Awesome. I'm curious. So this is just like sparking interest in my brain about how many different journeys there are. Like, is it kind of like the butterfly where, we have a completion of a cycle and then we kind of start a new cycle again?
Yeah.
Is that how you see it?
Exactly. It's an evolution, because it's basically the ending of yourself and the beginning of a new self. And because we're evolving, and right now we're evolving faster than we can execute. So that's another thing that's really kind of like confusing about this journey, because we're going through it at lightning speed. But the minute you complete a cycle within yourself, you repeat it and you go through it again. But the only thing is you go up the ladder, which is the ascension. You see things from a higher perspective every time. And what I won't say that you basically don't, it's not as hard, because technically it gets harder. Because what happens then is the greater the light, the deeper the shadow and the darker. And that's the polarities and laws of the universe and laws of rhythm. So in the laws of rhythm, the more light you have in your awakening process, the more it's going to illuminate the shadows in the deeper side, because of the contrast that they meet in the equal and opposite polarity. And so what I will say in that process, though, it does start to even out when you start to even out. And that's where, again, coming to the balance of it and surrendering inside. You will never get to some destination that there's an ending to this, because that's not what your soul chose. All of our souls are constantly evolving. And it's about our next best level constantly. And we're just making quantum speed and quantum shifts into greater self-mastery in this timeline than ever in the history of time.
Wow. Well, it feels like that as we're recording this, we're in between the two big eclipse activities here, end of October and into November. That it just kind of has everybody on their ear. And I wonder what you think about how to harness or to work with energetic portals like that. Like, is this it seems like it's a divinely timed time for, especially for this card deck to be available now. Like, this is perfect timing to start working with it. But what you personally, how do you feel about the energetics of what's happening out in the universe?
Oh, absolutely. Because what goes on inside is happening outside, and what's outside reflects inside, because we're also empaths and we absorb and take that on, which there are also ways through healing the wounds. You can stop absorbing as much of the collective, because it's your own inner wound that is absorbing that experience to purge your wounds that's causing you to be such an empath. And now empath is one thing, but to the degree it shuts you down is due to your own healing that you need to take place. So in this process, in the collective consciousness of this and the collective portals and these timelines, this is constantly moving and shifting, and there's constantly portals, and the astrological alignment and the universal alignment of this is perfectly in divine alignment for every bit of this consciousness. It is supporting every part of it. So the more we can understand that, so it's like an acceleration, like I was saying with the activations, it's happening regardless of whether you know it or not. So if you know that, and you can follow some of those patterns of that and what the alignment of that universal template is, you can get on board with that template, and it can become, because technically, in the astrological concept of evolutionary astrology, that is the blueprint of our soul. And so by getting an evolutionary astrology readings, you can actually know your soul blueprint and be able to know exactly what your soul templated out in the process of your entire life. Now you can match that and parallel that through a transit reading, which I just recently did one. And the transit reading will align with where you are. And then you can make your shifts and changes with the energy to support you. Now, what I will tell you is we've been in this alignment of the Saturn-Mercury square with all this polarity it's coming out, like it's going on almost a 3-year cycle. And these two eclipses are aligning with that energy. Of course, the eclipses are always about going deeper into the shadows and doing the shadow work and doing the release. But what it really is dotting I's and crossing T's and saying, what have you missed? Let's take another look. Let's say you go somewhere and, you've been at a hotel and it's like, oh, let me go look, make sure I didn't leave anything in the closet. Right. So this is like, you took everything out and you've taken it out. And that's where people think, oh, I've done the work. It's over. Like, I'm tired of this. And trust me, when I say, I can understand why people get tired of it.
Over.
But it's going back to look another time. And each time from a higher place, you see something differently, but it will support you. But These two eclipses are supporting us with this deeper dive that's asking us to look within to see what are like basically. So I'm going to give you like, I guess, the overall picture that from say 2012 was this opening where people were going through it, but it was very deep karmically, like connections of a lot of deep shadows. And it was strung out, like it lasted forever on like one thing. It took you a long time to get out of a relationship. Now, if you wake up to it, you can't get through it until you just make a change, like instantly, because you don't have the time to him haul around in this energy. But it's pushing us forward, basically. And so in this moving forward, then as we've moved up into say 2015 into say 2017, actually 2019. Let me see, 2015. No, 2015 to 2022 really is kind of like the 7 years of tribulation. So what's happening is it's coming through that we're going through clearing all that purge of the past, of that karma and that old ways. So everything, even in the collective, has been breaking down old ways since the crash in 2007 or 8 of the housing crash. Like all of those things were part of this energy. And it's just they're all different portals. So now we're on the other side, coming through these eclipses, going into the spring. This is another dive of all of that to plant the seeds now for what is your future. Because if you will ride this portal out between these two eclipses and into March in the spring and the equinox, you will be moving forward at that point into the greater side of your creation, not your destruction. That does not mean you won't still have to take things apart to rebuild the process. But what it does mean is we're taking an evolutionary cycle to go to our next best level really quickly. And so most people over the last through COVID was really breaking all that apart in everyone. But this whole year has been revisiting everything to be like, what's going with me? And so everybody's been almost like this pause, like you put everything on pause and not anything much is moving. And it feels so stagnant. It feels like you're molasses, and the universe is putting us through the portals energetically to do that. And so plant your seeds now and let go now. And I mean, this is down to, I would tell you, this is down to creating space for things too, down to cleaning out a closet, emptying a drawer, get your house in order. This is like a nesting time, like if you were pregnant, and like just let things go that no longer support you. And it's going to represent how quickly you can move internally. And these eclipses, I don't know when this will exactly be out, but if you're even missing past, you've not missed it because there's the transition of everything. Start clearing everything out, clean everything out, and then do it around you, do it inside of you. And then observe before you fill it up, and like really go to the higher self and communicate. Like, does this support my highest good? Because there's going to be a lot of things that can show up for you because you're a magnet now. When you become a magnet, things you wanted 15 years ago that you would have like killed for, like show up and it's like, oh, that's great. I've been waiting for that my whole life, but it's not you anymore. Mm. And that's what this is about, is the reinvention of you.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I have a feeling that people will be listening to this after that bit of time. So it'll be interesting for them as they're listening to reflect back and say, what did happen, through that bit of time, October into November of 2022.
Yeah. And it's actually still not too late at that point to still shed and still be planting the seeds, because it's in the spring, the seeds are going to be coming forth.
Awesome. Great advice. Do you want to pull a card for us?
I actually did.
Oh, okay.
Just a minute ago. And it was, it couldn't be more perfect because it is High Priestess. And so the way I was reading this and the High Priestess energy, and it says expanding consciousness, that's what we've been saying a lot about. That's what this energy is for. It's about coming into the High Priestess knows what she wants, and she doesn't really have to do anything to get it. It's what she just knows what she wants. So what she wants shows up for her. And that's possible when you come into a place of expanded consciousness and collected your aspects. So like, for instance, there's like a white peacock in that. And that white peacock technically represents like all the facets of who we are. And we're collecting those. So when you go through that process, and I can't remember if I gave you this link or not, but I recently done a 33-day self-mastery challenge where I was going live for 33 days, and I put it on a playlist on YouTube. It's there. Each day I talked about a specific aspect in order to think about what that aspect is, how it relates to you, how you can come into some mastery of it. But if you will do things like that, it's really creating the self-awareness and the observations of what you need to focus on inside of you. And then when these things show up to trigger you or feel really deep, or like you're looking at it as outside of you, really reflect it back and be like, what is inside of me? And so if this is triggering me, obviously that person is really just mirroring something in me that needs to be addressed. And it's not the situation that is even the problem. The problem is, why is it triggering you and what's under that? And so you can take a look and be the observer. And then in the process of when you're triggered, and see, like, just go into your heart space and into your solar plexus and your higher self, and call your guides and your higher self in, and then open and expand your heart and allow yourself to receive that information. And through that awareness and that self-actualization process, you will start to gain insight to what it is that the feelings, the thoughts, the emotions are. And then you can put all your little pieces together, and you can realize that maybe you're clearing a pattern that you've had your whole life. And out of it, you're needing to learn compassion, which is an aspect I'm talking about. And so these things are really teaching you, like, why do I have this wound inside of me? How can I heal that wound? How can I identify with the pattern that's creating this over and over? Because the minute you actually heal that, you're no longer triggered. Mm-hmm. But you need to gain out of it, not just what caused it or what the pain is or what's causing what the wound is. You need to know on the opposite end, what is it in my aspect in me that needs to be collected and observed and accepted? That means you might need to have more compassion for yourself in that particular case.
Awesome. Well, I love it. I love the High Priestess. She's a great archetype. And that is in what's the suit that
this is the olive suit.
Right.
And the olive suit again represents our aspects of who we are, all the of the energy of us going through, and or even some of the mirrored reflections that show up to show us our aspects. So it can be an internal aspect, or it can be someone showing up to reflect our aspects. Mm-hmm.
So much to think about. This deck is so rich. There's so much information in here. We sold out the first round like within 2 seconds, flat, but it's back in stock. And so just to let everybody know, you can get your Twin Flame Ascension from US Games or from any of the retailers that we sell through. And so it's just such a pleasure. I feel like we need to do a part 2 because there's so much to talk about with this, but I'm really grateful that you carved out a little bit of time to share with us today. And I'm looking forward to my own exploration of this card deck. So Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I will say really quick that an exploration is what it is. And all the feedback that I've gotten from everyone talk about the depth and the richness, but yet the lateness and the polarity within it, and being able to like use the sheet, the spread that's inside of it, comes with it, that you open up is the pathway. And just to really take your time, and this is not always, that particular one's not really a reading that you rush through. It's one that you process and you go through, and it will really help you activate these, like all these things I've talked about. The deck in itself will reflect back to you. And all of the cards and the images have mandalas and energy. And there's lots of stories on how that went together, but it's got its own agenda, is what I will say.
I love that. I love it. Thanks so much, Harmony. It's been great talking to you, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.